Hello and welcome back to Factorio. So, the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that we are not in the Nectorio playthrough, which I've been showcasing weekly. We are in a creative mode world, and unless you've been living under a rock, you will also know that the version 0.18 of Factorio has been released. We are in 0.18. And this is also the reason why we are not in the Nectorio playthrough. I'm waiting on the mods being updated. So I've actually done quite a lot of work in that world, but can't show you because of the mod update lag. So what I thought I would do is something entertaining for me, and hopefully you'll enjoy it too. You can see lots of bots flying around. The idea was, I was wondering, could I build a little science module that just does a bit of science? And I'll show you my thoughts in the form of counting things. I'm going to put down some creative mode stuff because this is annoying. All right, there's a passive energy source and we want a magic substation. There you are, that's got rid of all that flashing. Okay. So what I was thinking was, what would happen if we made, rather than a mega base, what would happen if we made a little modular science base? So I started stamping down what you would need for that. So the first thing you need is at least one machine making each of the 6 manufacturable sciences. And let's go for a 12 beacon build because life is too short for 8 beacon builds, and we're going to fully module it because there is no cost problem in creative mode. So if we just run this across one machine of each, what you find is that the red science and the military are being made at the same rate as each other, and they would make, in this configuration, 134.4 per minute. You'd only make 56 of the blue science, you'd make 112 of green, and then 96 of each of purple and gold. Okay, so then we have to ask ourselves, what kind of multiples of these would produce roughly similar levels of production for all of the sciences? And it turns out that 1/4 of 1,000, so 250, is the first thing where they roughly line up. Okay, so if you have 2 red machines, you have 268 red. You have 280 blue science with 5 machines. 336 with green, massively overachieving. But it turns out that if you only do 2 of those, 224, which is not 250. Okay. Military the same as red, so 268. And then the nearest you can get with the gold and purple science is 288. So green is massively overproduced, but can't be improved upon. All the others are sort of close to 250. I'm calling 288 close to 250 for this. Okay. So this is the smallest beaconed moduled build where they are it's roughly towards a ratio. Okay. Let's drag this over. Is that in the wrong place? Let's try that again. Right, that'll do. Seriously? All right, that's better. Right, so the next option up is just double the reds. So we're aiming for a 1K build here. Okay, so if we take a 1K build, sorry, a half K build. So that's 537 red, 504, 560 of green, 537, 576, 576. Okay, so this is 1/2 of a mega base. So it's 4 reds, 5 greens, 4 military, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 blue, and then is it 7 of each of these? 6 of each of those. 6 of the remaining. Okay, so this is a build you could shoot for. You can see it's starting to get bigger. Now, it turns out that if you go for something roughly between those two at 1/3, you also get something that's... So this isn't great. So we're aiming for 330 or 333. We hit 336 for blue. And then all the others are way out. So 400 for reds, 336 for blue and for green, which is pretty good. But then 400 for military, 384 for the other two, right? So a 1/3 build isn't really close enough to ratio. A 1/2 build is looking quite big, and a 1/4 build looks manageable. So the idea would be to work out how many labs I need to consume this amount of science, 1/4 science. Turns out it's about 11 labs. And for the sake of symmetry and that sort of thing, I've rounded it up to 12. Okay, so this little science build here, 12 labs with productivity modules and beacons, this thing does roughly 250 science a minute. It's got a bit of extra capacity, so I think it can do about 300, but it's comfortable doing 250. So then, when you look at this build, it's not that big and doesn't have a lot of edge space. However, it's more than enough edge space to be able to get all of the science making machines, let's just go to the side, along the edge. So the idea is there is a bot-based module to the left. We have a science making machine, and it puts the result out into the central region where it can be consumed by the labs. So this bot network and this bot network are separate networks. There you are, and there you are. If we go to map mode, just to really hammer that home, there you are. So we have separate networks. And we can separate them by more or less space if we want, as long as we're separating them by 3, 4, 5 tiles. That's the most we can span, but we could make them much closer together as long as there's 1 tile between them. Okay, so that's the idea. Now then, 1/4 science, just how much do we need to make this work? So for the green, let's do them in order actually. Let's go over to red science. Okay, so for red science, we need some copper plate, which I'm faking in. We need some gears. So 1 machine, 12 beacons is fine for that. And that's enough for these to run. Okay. Run round for green science. Green science requires belts and inserters. Both belts and inserters need gears, so I'm just feeding the gears up and down there. And then they also require green chips for the arms. So we've got a little green chip maker here. Now, turns out that this whole supply bit is over-spec'd for keeping 3 machines running. It also turns out that it's under-spec'd for keeping the arms and the belts running full-time. However, it doesn't matter because we've got more than enough production here for the 3 green machines. And if you remember, the green machines were the ones which were the most over-spec'd on the build. So 2 of these are running pretty much all the time. This one here runs a bit of the time. Okay, next one, military. So military, if you're playing vanilla, there aren't really any military researches you will be wanting to run permanently. So there are strategies where you do a tiny military build and you just buffer up a few thousand military at a time, and then you can run a round of military research. However, I've done this at 2 machines, which matches the red, and for that it's this little build here. So it's most of 1 red ammo machine, not all of it. It's just slightly more grenades than you can get with a single grenade machine with speed modules. So it ends up you need 2. So 2 is overkill, but not by an entire machine, frustratingly. It's like literally 5. It's like 2 or 3% off being able to run it with a single grenade machine. Now, as I say, you would probably run this to buffer up 10,000 or something grey science and only run a research when military is available. So in practice, you would probably do this with 1 grenade machine, and then you only need 1 wall machine as well. Okay, so there's a straightforward build. The next build after this is the blue science. Okay, so this is the build with the most science machines. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. All right, so these require engines, red circuits, and sulfur. And you can see my build is actually starved for red circuits, so I need to go back and find out why that is. Remember, we have a gear machine which we're using for red science. We can share that gear machine, throw in a pipes machine, and that's enough to keep the engine builds running permanently. Although they do back up, so that it's slightly overmade. We need a single machine making sulfur. I think that's actually overkill, but it's good overkill. For the red circuit production, we require 1 plastic machine is adequate. Then I've overspec'd the coil machines, but I'm direct feeding them up and down because coils are one of those things which you don't really want to be botting around. To be honest, you don't really want to be botting around the plastic. But so the ideal option would be to lose this beacon, put in the plastic machine here, feed the plastic up and down as well, and then fly the green circuits in. So what are these actually starved for? Because it's the starving which is causing the problems. Let's see what this stalls on. Green circuits. Ah, hang on. That has no productivity modules. Right, that's that problem solved. That will fix the problem. So what we have here is 2 red machines coming off a coil machine, and as I said, I would modify this to remove this beacon, put in a plastic maker. Then in the middle we have a green circuit build, and then another one of these. Okay, and the reason it's done that way is because both the plastic and the coil, they double in number on craft. So you put in 1 copper plate, you get out 2 coils. You put in 1 coal, you get out 2 plastic bars. So you want to direct feed those if at all possible. Okay, then the next build I'm going to look at is the production science build. Okay, so let's head over here. Production science requires speed modules, rail, and furnaces. Okay, so we need slightly over 1 productivity module making machine. This is one of these ones where if I threw speed mods into the prod mod machine, it wouldn't be. Let's just double check that. I don't think it's quite enough to run all the purples. So we've got 2 machines. Yeah, we have 0.4 machines spare. So we need the 2 machines here. You can't speed up one of these with prod mods enough to make it work. Now this requires 30 rail per craft, 1 furnace and 1 prod mod. So the prod mods and the furnaces are flown in by bots. If we go up here, you can see a single furnace machine is adequate, although it does need at least 2 stack inserters to feed it. It's 0.52 of a stack inserter for the steel and 0.52 of a stack inserter for the brick. So if you try and feed it with just 1 arm, it can't actually feed the machine fast enough, and that turns out to be enough to make the purple builds stall. So, and then we have these rail builds. So we're making the bars on site and direct inserting those. Bars are like gears; they have a really short craft time, so you want to direct insert those if you can. Then the rails get the other material it needs, the stone and the steel, by bot, direct feed it into a box, and then the box feeds into here with an arm. I had to put a circuit condition on this inserter. Let's see if we can, yeah. So this inserter here, which is feeding through to the requester chest, has a red wire to the requester chest. It's counting how many rails there are in it. And if there's less than 200, it's active. Otherwise, it's inactive. Otherwise, the rail crafting machine would just fill up this box with rail, which is kind of sad. Okay, but it does mean, doing it this way, it means that this box is always backed up, and this machine here is always full. So it's moving a full stack of rail to here, which leaves a full stack of rail as a gap here, which means it can pick up a full stack of rail here. So at least the stack inserters are moving stacks. Okay, so that's this build here. And then the last one is the high-tech science, right? And I haven't got round to building the whole of this. This is the low densities that are needed. So it's 7 machines, I think. 6 machines, sorry. 6 low density structure machines is sufficient to keep this running. It's actually 2 to 1. So in a different world, I could have a low density structure machine either side of one of these and feed them in left and right. But these don't really take numbers of things. So it's 2 blue chips, one flying robot frame and 3 low density structures. It's not that many items, right? So we just let it go. And I haven't done the build for the robot frames or for the blue chips. And then the rocket launch is here. We just need 4 beacons. That's sufficient to have this running at least the speed required. So that's it. So this is a 1/4,000 science per minute science build. There is no smelting, and I take that on board. But this is a really manageable size. I can imagine getting this down to a really tiny footprint with nicely painted concrete, and then having this as a module which I can literally stamp down, build, and then I've got 1/4 science. The 1 megabase science, 1,000 science per minute, those actually have quite a substantial footprint on the ground, and they take a lot of resource to build. So I think it might be viable to take some variation of this build and basically go, so if you did your launch a rocket rush, then you turned the base over to building modules while you just launched a rocket every 10 minutes and got 2 or 3 rounds of bot speed upgrades. You could then stamp one of these down. You got 1/4 science per minute straight away. Then you can turn your entire starter base into just doing modules. Stamp down another one of these, that's half science, and then you could start thinking about your 1 science a minute or your 5 science a minute or whatever. Really huge footprint base. Anyway, this is my entire thing I've been doing while waiting for updates. And I think, let's have a quick look, see if we can figure out robot frames while you're here. Okay, so let's put one of these down. So let's redo that. We would like to do flying robot frames. And flying robot frames is an intermediate product, so it can be productivity module. Okay, let's pick that up and rotate it. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to use this little widget here to count things. So we are down 1.04 robot frame builds compared to what these gold science things need. So if we put down a second one of these. Okay. So this is now so we are 0.4 short, 1/20th short. However, the gold science machines themselves, let's just recount that. Right, these are producing 288 and we need 250. My maths isn't wonderful, but I know that 288 versus 250 is bigger than 4%. So the 4% production we are behind on the robot frames is not going to slow the gold machines down so far that they don't hit their 250 target. Okay, then to make these, let's grab this, and we're just going to put, this is sort of a, this build isn't quite the right way round. Let's see if we've got some space here. Okay, so these need electric engines. And they're normally in a 2-to-1 ratio, but with prop mods, they're still roughly 2-to-1. Okay, so I would, let's take this, put that there. Okay, so now, so this is 3-to-2. Oh, this is actually saying we have, yeah, sorry. It's 2-to-1 the other way. I can't really add up, can I? So, 1 electric engines, 2 robot. This is over by 0.2, so that's all we need, which kind of implies we could do a direct insert type thing from this into these. Okay, and for this to work, we need engines. Okay, and again, we have too much engines. This also requires green chips, which we can definitely make. This, and then this requires steel gears and blah. Okay, so we know from here that just 1 machine of each of those is more than enough. And in fact, since this is the same items as this, it's tempting to expand this build by 1 and just pass the items across a bot build boundary. Anyway, this is as far as I'm going to go with this. And then the other build we need do a bit of space is blue chips. Okay, let's see how that looks. So we are 1.04 blue chips. So 2 blue chips. And we're back to the 0.4. So that's fine. So just 2 blue chip makers is enough to keep this running. These will require some reds and some greens, but you can see this is not a large build compared to some of those vast bot builds or huge mega bases you see. This could be fitted within 4 of these modules for the actual production, and then maybe 4 again for smelting. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. So this is just a toy, and it's something I'm playing with while I wait for mods to be updated. Hopefully next week, the normal routine will return. In the meantime, let's leave with a launch. Let's leave with a launch. Cool. Have fun. See you in a week. Let's hope that the country doesn't fall to bits with Brexit and that we don't all die of coronavirus. Till then, bye-bye.